Okay. So, hi Neil. We are honored to welcome you for a session for the CEMS Global Alumni Week 2024. I would like to have the honor to introduce you to our audience. So we have Neil Merchant currently working at Carney at the New York location, and he's a graduate from the IIMC batch of 2017. He was the president of CEMS Club Calcutta from his batch and then pursued his CEMS MIM at WU Vienna University of Economics and Business. Before we get started with the session, I would like to give a brief overview to the audience about what CEMS is. So, the CEMS MIM is a joint master's program offered by a global alliance of leading business schools, multinational companies, and NGOs that together offer one of the top ranked master's programs in management globally to the wide network of students. The curriculum is co-created and refined by faculty, academic directors from 33 member schools, and input from 70 plus CEMS corporate partners, 8 social partners, as well as the CEMS students and alumni. So, as far as India is concerned, so IIM Calcutta is the only B school with the CEMS partnership, and we have a distinguished CEMS alumnus with us to share his experiences and insights of how CEMS helped shape their careers. Would you like to add something, or we can go ahead?
Well, thanks for the introduction and for the opportunity. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So I think we would like to get started with a bit on your introduction related to CEMS and like what exactly inspired you to pursue the CEMS MIM, like a double degree from Vienna. And like this is apart from the IIM Calcutta PGP degree, right? So what's been your inspiration?
Yeah. So, quick introduction. Barring what you already mentioned, I work with Carney. I've been with the firm for the last 6.5 years. Specialized in energy and chemical space. Was hired into the Mumbai campus, but moved to New York 1.5 years ago. While I was at IIM Calcutta, I was part of the Dramatic Society as well as JBS Parosi. So, pretty ingrained into the campus culture and miss it a lot. So hopefully we'll be back soon. I married my batchmate from IIM Calcutta, so I'm from the 52nd batch. And we're both here since the last couple of years. So getting on to your first question around my initial inclination towards CEMS, I think I'd heard about CEMS even before I joined IIM Calcutta. I had a few friends from my undergrad who had joined IIM before me, and they had spoken about it. And I'd also read about it while I was preparing during my CAT days. So I was aware of this additional degree that only students from IIM Calcutta have an opportunity to enroll for. So that was something I was keen to understand. And as I joined the campus, in my first year, I joined CEMS Club Calcutta. And I had a lot of folks. As a part of that responsibility, I used to engage with a lot of CEMCs who had come from different campuses during their exchange term. So interacted with a lot of them, and I think a few things stood out. What I realized why CEMS was different was there's a lot more. SEM students are a lot more integrated. There's a lot more. There's a culture of exchanging viewpoints, doing things together, sharing cultures, but also different management practices and history. So I think generally I found that group to be quite close knit. The folks who had come from different campuses to IIM Calcutta. So I wanted that. I mean, I didn't want just uh, a Europe experience for 4 months without getting ingrained into their culture. So I knew that SEMS would give that opportunity. The second thing specifically for WU Vienna was I knew this campus was known for its academic rigor. And if you check out the photos of the campus, it looks like a spaceship. So I don't know, a bit naive, but I was very impressed by the campus and its academic rigor and just generally living in Vienna. So I chose BU Vienna, and that was a conscious choice. I could have gone to a lot of other schools that students usually prefer, but I thought that would be a great opportunity for me to explore the campus as well as get a differential perspective, and it didn't disappoint. And I can talk more about that. And I think the third thing was, which is a bit more tangible. I think CEMS is like a global passport. It's very well recognized in Europe. And in fact, when I'd gone for the CEMS Career Forum, I did secure a couple of internships and jobs at very reputed corporate partners. So I knew that CEMS did give that opportunity to explore careers outside India, and I was always keen to explore that. So those are the three big reasons why I chose CEMS as I joined Calcutta.
Right. So, yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that. Starting from the dramatics club. So I am
Yeah.
also part of the dramatics. So I think we would
Okay.
I would like to discuss on that offline sometime. But yeah, all the reasons, the exposure that you mentioned of. So it is really something students are looking forward to, like the 60th batch will be going the next
Yeah.
year. And yeah, precisely these are the lot of things that really inspire a lot of students and makes like the competition very tough. So yeah, as a step representative myself conducting all the process, I could see, like, the motivation every student has who are dedicated to it, and how much like rigor it requires, and then you need to prove that. So yeah, having that dedication and knowing that what you want from it is as equally important before you get into it. So yeah,
Completely.
the selection itself does reflect all of the clarity that is
Yeah.
required.
Yeah, I
So
mean, you have to be intentional about it. CEMS is
yeah,
not just, hey, I want another degree on my CV. Don't do that. It's a lot
right,
more commitment and responsibility. So get into it if you're truly interested.
right. Okay, thanks a lot. That tells a lot about, I think, a brief in the journey, but I think we would like to deep dive more into it as we go
Yeah.
through. So, as you yourself mentioned, like, how the SEMS and especially Vienna is quite academically rigorous, right?
Yeah.
So, how would you compare that to your education at IIM Calcutta here?
Well, I mean, Calcutta is as rigorous as they come. So I would not take away. I mean, I would say it's a very different pedagogy. The way courses are taught at Calcutta versus the way courses are taught at WV Vienna are just different. And I would not want to take away from any of the two by just drawing comparisons. But what I would say is, generally, when it comes to Calcutta, it I felt, we have a lot of breadth as well as we have a lot of depth, and the competitive pressures are also higher because we're studying with the best of the country. So the rigor is as strong at Calcutta, and I would say the options of courses we have is also very diverse. So I would not take away anything from that. I think what differentiates SEMS courses is very similar in breadth, similar in depth. Sometimes, uh, you know, SEMS is just one trimester in your second year, right? Like when you're on campus, IIM Calcutta, you're there for
Right,
the rest trimesters. So I think in IIM Calcutta, you can go deeper into a select course in the sense if I take part one of a course, I can take part two, I can take
right,
a branch of it, and I can go deeper. In a SEMS trimester, you don't have that opportunity to go that deep because you're just there for a trimester. Having said that, what differentiates a SEMS class is your peers. In IIM Calcutta, for good reasons or bad, it's our classrooms are mostly folks from one nationality, which is India. But in a SEMS classroom, you typically have folks from 20 to 30 different nationalities.
right,
So what flavor that brings is different viewpoints that you experience in a class. Like you could teach the same course at IIM Calcutta and at PU Vienna, but the classroom will come with much different viewpoints. And that
right,
makes things very interesting that, okay, and what you learn through class conversations and case study discussions is a lot of history Yes, yeah. So you learn a lot of different histories, different parts of the world that I never paid attention to actually is occurring in real time. So it just broadens your horizon a bit. It makes you look at things more holistically. And then, I mean, there were some courses which were just different. Like I can maybe take a minute to talk about a course which was one of the courses that opened my eyes was scenarios of globalization, and it was essentially the course led by an ex management consulting partner for 20, 30 years. He was now running a course at Vienna. And the course was about, hey, if this were to happen, how do you think different parts of the world would react? Right? If climate change were to happen, how would businesses from different parts of the world react? If, there was more cultural divide and bipartisanship, the way the world is kind of dividing now, how would different countries react? And that's a bit more blue sky. It allows you to think, go beyond your stuff, and build that strategic lens of the business landscape. So that those kind of courses were very intriguing. It kind of broadened my horizon, and it especially coaches you well how to look at something from a 50,000 feet, right?
Right.
So which was very helpful for me even when I went on and joined consulting.
Right. So I think such kind of courses, especially after the COVID kind of unexpected scenarios that we have seen. So I think such courses prepare you well for like being predictive in advance, being prepared well in advance in the business scenarios to
Funnily
see.
enough, we never predicted COVID, but
No, I
I
mean,
wish, yeah. But I'm sure now it's part of the course. But yeah, you're completely right.
yeah, I mean, but like studying something like that would definitely have helped in creating paths on how to react to it at least. So yeah, I
Exactly.
think those are things that we did not expect, but still, as a part of learnings, we could have utilized to some extent.
Yeah.
So, just like this course, was it like something you were already aware of, or like what, on what grounds did you have like your course selections, and what do you think has been like one of this and other courses which have had created a long-lasting impact for you?
Yeah. So I think again, obviously this I didn't know before I joined IIM Calcutta,
Mhm.
but very early on after joining IIM Calcutta, because I knew I wanted to apply for CEMS, I started speaking to a lot of CEMSs who were in my second year. So jokers were in the second year who were going for CEMS and then coming back from CEMS both first and
Right.
third trimester,
Hmm.
understanding from them their experiences, uh, what did they do with their SEMS opportunity. And different people choose to do different things because your experience can be very different based on which side to go to. So after talking to people, so I spoke with a couple of people who had gone to VU, uh, and I tried to understand from them how their experience was. They spoke about a few courses they took. They spoke about the campus experience. The SEMS Club of Vienna is one of the most active SEMS clubs, so that was also one of the reasons to kind of go to a community which is already very proactive, right? So I understood about the courses, and I knew that hey, there was this course scenarios of globalization that was good. There's also this Professor Dr. Philip Nell, who is very recognized in Europe, and I knew that he taught there, and I wanted to take his courses as well, and I did get a chance to finally take those courses. So I knew about at least 3, 4 courses I wanted to take there, which were more strategy, macroeconomic uh, uh, oriented. So that was definitely something I wanted to do, and I also knew that the SEMS Club is super active, so I wanted to kind of participate in those activities they had because that's a nice way of getting a cultural emotion, which I did get.
Right.
So I mean, it was all intentional. Looking at the academic side as well as the SEMS Club side, I kind of decided to go with you.
I think with that, it pretty much sounds like it did align a lot with your expectations, and I think so did come the learnings from it too.
Yeah.
So while we are already discussing on the academic front, maybe another thing that students are curious on about the guest lectures from corporate leaders, right?
Mhm.
So how have these kind of contributed to an experiential learning, or how have they influenced your perspective on a global business management?
Yeah. So I think that's one of the highlights of SEM and strengths of SEM, that it's it's the foundation is to have very strong corporate partners, so that the curriculum is getting upgraded very quickly based on what company expectations are. So rather than just having, hey, we have this placement period of 3 days, you come in, you kind of recruit people. I think it's a lot more engaged, where companies do either workshops, or they do guest lectures, or they do some kind of experiential lunches and dinners, where they take you through their facilities, so on and so forth. So bunch of activities that are then I because I was in WEU quite a large portion of my time while I was there in Europe. I ended up visiting quite a few of these events. So I would say the few things that were beneficial for me was definitely getting getting an exposure of what recruitment in Europe looks like. And it also gave me the opportunity to participate in some of those recruitment activities. And it's a bit different. It's a bit more nuanced, because it's not like just a very quick matching of CV and interviews. It's a lot more intentional. You really have to know about the company, be interested in the company, and they also really have to be invested in you. So one is that getting that background of how recruitment in Europe works. The second thing also is how different the priorities are. I think now the whole world is uh, moving towards the direction of sustainability. But back when I had gone, like 2016, very few people used to talk about sustainability, especially outside Europe. Like, it was not circularity, recycling was not a big thing. People used to talk about it, but nobody was very serious about it. But 2016, Europe was already very serious about sustainability as a topic. And that gave me a peek into, okay, this is where the world is going to go. Climate change is serious. European companies are leading the way. They're already thinking about it so deeply, and they're actually taking intervention. So it kind of gave me a view that, hey, this is where probably the market is going to go. So even if I don't work in Europe, I should be mindful of these trends, and these will become important. I think the third thing is just European style is different of working. The things they kind of prioritize in India versus what they prioritize as skill sets there are very different. There it's more important that you are a very structured thinker and are able to communicate well, versus they might be willing to take certain they would be a bit more flexible on the analytics side, right? So the things they kind of prioritize there versus they will prioritize in India are different. So I think uh, having those interactions with the companies, going through their workshops, as well as they used to have this block seminars and things like those, I think we got a pretty decent understanding of how companies work and what do they expect from candidates.
Yeah, I think the kind of scenario how things have been on a global front, you get a head start,
Yeah.
and you see like being kind of ahead of time. You know what trends you can really expect in the coming times.
Yeah.
Right. So, like while we're discussing on the professional development front, so like that is something what you I think learned at that time and maybe observed with time as well. And how did this actually like particularly help you with respect to your current role at Carney?
As I said, a few things which really helped me. one is I would talk about professional, but also other things. Is first definitely getting that getting a strong rigor in terms of structured thinking and communications, the big picture thinking. I think that's definitely helpful whether you're in consulting or you're in any industry for that matter. But planning for a leadership role at some point in life, I think getting that exposure was very good. Second is the cross-cultural experience, right? It's different to go to Europe if you're just going for travel versus you're getting integrated with the communities there. And I did not have a lot of cross-cultural experience while I was in India, but CEMS gave me a lot of that background during the 4 months I was there. And there have been friendships I've been able to maintain some of them even since then. And it was really helpful. It was not super helpful while I was in India for the first 5 years, but now I moved to New York a couple of years ago. All of that now kind of helps that, hey, it is a bit different to live in a different culture, and it kind of brought the learnings from those days. How do you kind of adapt to a new setting? Uh, the third also is, I think, a bit European, and you see it in US as well, is while SEMS is a lot about academic rigor, it's also a lot about cultural rigor outside the academics. So being very curious about different cultures, their nuances and their activities. We used to go to folk opera in Vienna, or we had these winter market hopping runs that were organized by the club. So we would go to different markets, have glühwein, and try. We used to go to like try out that Sacher cake from Vienna or try out manna cookies, so on and so forth. So I think that curiosity of uh, getting integrated in different cultures also about having a life outside studies and work. I think you lose a lot of that when you're an Indian. I mean, no criticism to Indian
Right.
academic system, but like we tend to not prioritize some of these things, which
Right.
folks outside prioritize a lot. Like in Europe, especially US, like they do a lot of things outside, and it's good to kind of, and it's just a matter of intention that you choose to do some of these things. So I think Vienna kind of helped build a lot of that intention, uh, and that has sustained even now.
Yeah, so definitely like going to an exchange and with like people coming from all over the world, the key aspect definitely comes to the cultural sensitivity as well and how you get along with people. So I think that makes me too curious a lot of times that like people are coming from completely different backgrounds. Like usually when
Yeah,
we meet new people, you would discuss about probably some movies, series, or music that you will,
yeah.
find some common point to gel upon. But then how come like with people completely different from you, how what exactly would the conversation start like, and how do you like, as you mentioned that you would become friends and stay in contact till date, so like how does that work?
I mean, see, um, you, I am myself curious, but so are the people who came there. And India is a very interesting country, and people
Yeah.
want to know more about India. So if there's someone who's willing to talk about the nuances of Indian culture, people are interested to know, like I'm interested to know about their culture. So
Right.
it doesn't take any time, right? We talk about some of our festivals. They have some really interesting festivals. If you check out, Vienna has its, like, Austria has its own version of Christmas, and they have
Mhm.
their own concept of Santa. They call it Krampus, who's a bad guy. So, like, if you know about some of these stories and you share stories and you share about nitty-gritties of your things, people really generally are curious to know more, and then those relationships sustain. Obviously, the other thing also is that, as you can imagine, SEMS folks are generally very, uh, you know, I've found them, especially the folks in Europe, I've found them to be very uh, it's very important for them to think about sustainability. It's very important for them to think about the environment, about the geopolitics, about how the world should be more integrated. I think it's a lot of like-minded people as well. It's like folks who really want. I mean, I know initial college days you might say that, hey, that's just naive optimism, but I'm still in touch with some of the folks, and I at least follow a lot of them on LinkedIn as well, and I can see that that's sustained. It's been like, 8-9 years since, but people still have the same values. So you tend to then remain friends because the value setup has not changed over time. It's remained the same. Right.
I think that is a very key factor, that because kind of we generally look after for people who have the similar values, and then which, if they tend to remain constant, then definitely we can expect other things too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is interesting. And I think, yeah, the curiosity is another thing that would always keep you, bind in some way or the other. So
Yeah.
that is interesting indeed. So, as you're talking about like different cultures coming together, so did you all get a chance to, like, celebrate different festivals together or something on
Yeah.
those lines? Like,
Yeah,
did
that happens all the time.
did you
Yeah,
tell
sure.
them about Diwali here or some festival?
Yeah, I mean, I think, see, India is now kind of on the map quite a bit. So people are
Yeah,
generally aware of, the Festival of Lights, the Festival of Colors, which is probably coming up in a
yeah.
couple of days. Um, but there's some other things which folks are not aware of. So, for example, the kite flying festival,
Hmm.
right? It's not something people know about. Okay, what do you have a
Right.
kite flying festival? And that's why, I mean, as a CEMS club president, that was one of the big activities I organized on campus. Because my
Right.
idea was that, hey, everybody knows about these bigger ones, even the folks who come from abroad. But let's show
Right.
them some of these nuanced festivals, and we kind of just bought some kites, bought some, the spool, and got a lot of people. And some of the SEMSIs were still, back because it's still Jan 14. It's not, they've extended their trips. So
Yeah.
few of them were there on campus, and we had an event on the top of NH Kateris. So that was fun. So and I've experienced similar stuff when I went there. Right, I got to know about Krampus, and I got to know about some of the other things. Like, I mean, folks know about Halloween quite a bit, but just generally, Halloween, Thanksgiving, what are the stories? Where did
Hmm.
it start? Kind of sharing a lot of that while you're there.
So I think that's another interesting aspect, like with the all the events that, I mean, there must be other team bonding events, but these
Yeah,
festivals and all the stories. So these are, I think, a completely different experience, and the way you approached, like, let's go a bit, like, do something which is not too mainstream and show
yeah,
other festivals. So I think that is pretty impressive.
yeah. I mean, that's
So,
also because I'm from the state of Gujarat and
oh,
Rajasthan, and it's a big festival for us. So
right.
I obviously brought in that angle.
I think that is the whole point of bringing the different parts of
Yeah,
even the country together at IIM Calcutta too. So
yeah,
that's our kind of exposure that we get here.
yeah.
So, like with this kind of all the collaborations and teamwork, like any particular story or any particular experience you've had of team bonding, like, any such festival or event.
I mean, there are a lot of stories, but I probably want to share this one story, which was actually for preparing for a group project for scenarios of globalization. So I think we had to present a scenario about how the world would look like if there was more, you know, cultural divide going forward. How would it impact the businesses? And I could think about the scenarios like, the typical left brain thinking that, hey, this could happen, that could happen. But my group, I remember there was this one guy who was from Austria. There's another person who was from Bulgaria. There was a girl who was a Russian, uh, but living in Vienna.
Okay.
And I think she had like a Russian Polish background, like Pole background, pretty unique. And there were more folks as well. And we were thinking about, yeah, but what's the theater we are going to bring in? So we got a crystal ball, and the girl dressed up as those stargazing ladies,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
the whole hippie get up. and we're all
Oh,
dressed up, and we were like, okay, crystal ball, how does the world look 5 years later, right?
oh,
And it sounds stupid now, but my point
no,
is that,
no.
yeah, but the idea was that, that sparked in me that, hey, you can be like how creative you can be in communicating the same thing, and it can have a very different impact on your audience, right? So
Right.
for me, having that drams background, but not even thinking of bringing that while I'm working on a project. But for them who don't even do
Mhm.
dramatics, it's their second nature to think like that.
Right.
Made me very, made me feel very humble that there's a very long way to go in terms of unlocking the creative side of thinking. So these kind of events, so I mean, probably not very cultural specific event, but just as a
Mm.
group activity, which kind of opens up of how different people think and what's
Right.
their starting point was eye opening for me.
Right. No, I think that was, no, I mean, it did not sound weird. It was definitely interesting, and I can pretty well imagine how, I mean, how it would have, what would the reaction have been. And yeah, but yeah, the dramatics element that you put in. So yeah, I think sometimes we tend to overlook what actually can be from a creative
Yeah,
aspect for others. So
yeah,
yeah, I think that is also a reminder that what appears pretty obvious to us at times can come up in different ways and have different impact with a group of people.
yeah.
So, I think this is one of the interesting stories that we have, but I'm pretty sure like the exchange wouldn't have been all a smooth experience, and there
Mhm.
might have been something that would have challenged you. I mean, though despite the preparation you would have done, the research you had in place, but then
Mhm.
there must have been something which would have been unpredictable or challenging at some point. So, would you like to recall something of that sort?
No, I think the only thing I recall being a challenge is the euro to INR conversion. So
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's just like a typical Indian. But I think the only challenging part is, see, Europe is very welcoming. The
Mm,
folks are pretty welcoming, and they want you to integrate. Um, I would always be invited to activities, events, dinners. So I never felt that I was left out in the classroom or outside the classroom. That was never the case. And Europe is generally safe to travel around as well. So I mean, while I probably spoke a lot about my acads and professions and cultural thing, I did travel quite a bit while I was at CEMS. So I probably didn't speak, but I did a lot of my travel. Most of the places are safe, barring some muggings, like not muggings, but just like your bag gets taken out, and we had some stories like that. But it's largely safe, and I think the only challenge is, I mean, coming from a normal background in India, sometimes things can be expensive. So you just have to budget for things in advance. You
mm,
can't be very lavish last minute,
yeah.
else it can put a hole in your pocket. But I think beyond that, I don't think I found a lot of things to be challenging, and it was a different world. So I was very happy to jump in and learn more.
Yeah, I think that budget management is also kind of some application of our finances that we study.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
would like to add that as another checklist to the learnings only. Like, yeah, with having that conversion and all that, which comes, I think, directly as an Indian. But then, yeah,
yeah,
those budget management learnings kind of do help in the long run too.
yeah.
But while you mentioned
But
of it,
it's
yeah,
sorry.
sorry, go
But
ahead,
it's a
please.
different experience to live in Europe like a student, on a shoestring budget. That's, I mean, my wife and I, she's also a SMC. So when we look back,
Okay.
we are very fond of those days, how we kind of lived at a very shoestring budget in Europe, but had a really good time. Right?
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, so I was just saying that like while we just discussed on like you just mentioned of the traveling part, so I think we would like to know a bit about more that as well. I mean, yeah, because despite all the academic requirements, it is an exchange and
Yeah,
somewhat students do look forward to the traveling aspect too.
yeah, yeah. I would say that, I'll talk about, before I get into my traveling aspect, I would say if you're looking for traveling as an option, the really good countries to be around is Germany and Belgium. So Cologne is a fantastic campus, by the way. I was very good friends with the person who was studying in Cologne, so we did visit her a couple of times. It's a beautiful town and a nice city, nice student town. And uh, um, my now wife was studying at Lua in Belgium, so that's another campus. The reason I say that is it's geographically ideal, and you can move around quite a bit, and the attendance requirements is generally lower. So it kind of works out well. But mine was 80% attendance. But I worked around because you can plan out your courses so that you have blocks of days where you can go for trips, right?
Right.
So I was always very interested in some of these. I mean, Europe is history, right? Like so large parts of world, but European history is fantastic. So I mean, living in Vienna with a lot of history, but then going to Italy, which is just down under, and walking through the ruins of Rome, or going to Venice. But Venice was a bit of a letdown. But Venice or Czech Republic on the right, or Hungary on the right, with a lot of cultural but also nice party culture. I think those are nice. But yeah, I mean, I did travel a lot on the uh, eastern and the western side of Europe. Did not get a chance to go to Scandinavia because it was a bit too far to go, but kind of covered. I would probably say that I covered 14 countries in the 4 months I was there. So I would just plan out those 2 weeks when I would not have any courses, go on 2 weeks, and then come back to a few courses and go again and kind of cover as much as I could. I think uh, in terms of natural beauty, I think Switzerland was out of this world. It lived up to the hype, and I understand why. Uh, you know, Yash Chopra really liked that spot and brought it into his films. Italy, I have not eaten better food in my life. And something that you just eat there fresh, you can't find it anywhere else in the world. Like, the spices as well as how fresh everything is. It's just too good. Um, and I would say, in terms of just peace and quiet. Like Europe has a lot of these Easter egg cities, right? Like nobody has heard of Bruges in Belgium. Like people usually think go to Brussels, but these are nice fairy tale towns, which have started featuring in Bollywood movies somehow, but they're just one-day trips where you go and you're like transported to a different civilization, and it's just too good. So bunch of small towns like that in Europe, which I think all CEMCs would recommend you once you get there. So it's not too hard. I think one tip which everybody knows is to get that Urail pass. And if
Yeah.
you are willing to spend a bit more, take that first class Urail pass. I think for 3 months you live like a king or a queen. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, so I think thanks for the recommendations of those places which are probably not so known, but yeah, definitely need to be included into the itinerary.
Yeah.
And just curious on the Switzerland locations, like the movie locations, did you get to go and get some pictures clicked there? I mean, I would
Yeah.
definitely
So
do that.
I mean, Interlaken looks like, I mean, if I've seen heaven on this world, it's probably Interlaken and Mount Titlis, where you just are stunned with uh, how things look. Right, it looks as if you're walking in a painting, and you don't want to come out. Uh, and it's just too serene to explain in words. So I think Switzerland, hands down, like Interlaken, Grindelwald, uh, just too amazing. And they have this night. If you take a Urail pass, you have these trains. I forget what they're called. I think it was known as a golden pass or some kind of trains where
Okay.
they have the window ceilings.
All
Like
right.
ceilings are windows.
Transparent, yeah. The
Yeah, it's just
transparent
windows on the
ceiling.
top. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you just lie down and you see the mountains on both sides.
Yeah.
It's just, sometimes you feel that, hey, I mean, do I even deserve so much? It's just too good.
No, I think that's how I think life surprises us in different
Yep.
ways, and it's all about embracing it as it comes.
Yep.
So yeah, while this like we're talking about this dreamy experience, so we've got to heard that in Vienna there is something like a ball event. which
Yep.
is also something of, fairy tale kind of that I
Yeah.
would probably imagine. So did you get to experience that, and how was that?
Yeah. So I did not, because I had to leave by then. But
Okay.
I think there's this towards the end of the SEMS.
December about,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
around that time. There's this um ball, which is like I've seen photos and I've heard a lot from the event, but it's basically a black tie event.
Okay.
So every year the SEMS Club Vienna holds a ball, and they invite alums as well as current students to participate. And it's like a typical black tie, not a cocktail event. It's like a ball with your champagne and red wines and proper prim
Mm-hmm.
and proper kind of but yeah, I didn't that's one of the small regrets, that I didn't get a chance to go to the ball. But uh who knows, some point I'm still an alum of Vienna, so
Maybe some other time now. This might be a reminder that you may want to plan out a trip again.
definitely.
Nice. So, like on this front, like a bit, I think, getting back a bit on the academic front. So, I think the
Mhm.
program requires like business projects and an international internship, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
how did you manage to navigate through these?
Yeah, so I think one way definitely is when it comes to business projects. I think our campus does a great job. So thanks to Roma ma'am and the team there, they have a lot of corporate partnerships. And I did my business project with ABB, which was through what IIM Calcutta got for us.
Mm.
So that was a nice business project, and the team there really appreciated our work as well. We got really good grades as well as very positive feedback from the ABB team. So I think business project the campus helps, and they do a fantastic job at it. Uh, I think in terms of internships, it's hard. Uh, I don't want to mince words, and hence, folks have already had global exposure before, tend to get more points in selection, but also during the SEM selection at Calcutta. But also,
Mhm.
I mean, they're better at those requirements, right? But I think there are three ways. One is the SEMS Career Forum, and this kind of goes back to a company which had offered me a job, and they said that you'll fulfill the right. So I mean, at that point, it was a bit of a wild move for me to live in Hamburg. So I thought, okay, let me explore different routes, because see, if you do a job, then you don't need to do an internship outside. You're done.
Yeah, right.
Mm. But that's one route. You can get an internship or a job through the career forum while you're
Mhm.
there. The second is through just through IIM Calcutta alum connections. I think IIM Calcutta has a strong alum base outside India as well. A lot of folk in Southeast Asia, Middle East, but also in Europe and US. So Europe and US, sometimes the visa things can be a bit challenging, but Southeast Asia, Middle East are very doable. So I think a lot of my friends in my cohort got internships through these IIM Calcutta alum connections, who made it happen. And hence, it really helps, goes without saying, to be an IIM Calcutta alumni,
Yeah.
like being part of that alumni
Network
base.
itself, yeah.
Yeah, network. I think the third thing was just general cold calling, and that's what I did. I just reached out to maybe like 50 different companies wherever I could find contacts online, apply, and I got an internship at Landmark Group. It's a very large retail company based out of Dubai, and you would have heard some of their brands in India as well, like Lifestyle, Home Center. These
Yeah.
are all these are all Landmark companies.
Mm.
So I worked with Landmark in their Home Center division, working on setting up their Home Center kits. They were starting a new concept, so I was helping the marketing team in terms of what should their offerings be like.
Got it, got it. So I think it looks like it might appear difficult at the beginning, but then there are still ways to navigate through, and a bit of research, and it should be manageable enough.
Yep.
Okay. So, apart from this, would like to know about like the overall SEMS experience that you have. So, do you think, to some extent, did it help you grow as a person, like as an individual itself, or something like which helped you develop a deeper understanding of oneself? So, how was your reflection upon that?
Yeah, I think, see, the more you put yourself in situations which are new and unknown, you obviously learn a lot about yourself. So just by putting myself on a different continent I had never visited before, put myself there for 4 months is good enough for me to learn a lot more. Then you add the second order, third order of being with these 30, 40 different nationalities, or living by myself uh, in a very in like a hostel life, not a very protected life like in India, right? And I'm
Mm,
Calcutta, you have a very protected life. So kind of putting
yeah.
yourself out there and then exploring different places, whether it's historical, whether it's natural beauty, whether it's cultural significance itself, just that's enough. You don't really need to do a lot more. It kind of comes to you where you start comparing and questioning everything in terms of how you were thinking. You realize that, hey, different people think differently, different people
Mm,
react differently. So is my reaction, is my way of thinking the only right way? Or and you realize no, it's not, right? In
mm,
when you're just at one place throughout your life, you just think that this is the one right way of how everything should be done and how everything should be looked at. But then you feel like, okay, no, it you can have very different uh, foundational thoughts, operating models in terms of how you function in this world and still get by. And a lot of the diverse of operating models of living, uh, there's some that could be better. Like you can always learn and pick and choose from them. And Europeans are generally happier. So that was
mm.
always very it always piqued my curiosity that how are these folks so happy? Like what are they doing so differently? And what can I learn from them so that I can make my life better. So definitely like those experiences it was one of the most transformational experiences of my life. I would put it in the top three, if definitely like top three or top five for sure.
Yeah, I think the exposure and the perspective itself helps us at least identify in the first place that there are things which like we didn't even realize that we are rigid to some patterns or some biases that we come from. So I think
Yep,
that itself being challenged makes us have the realizations in the first place, and then we can always learn on top of it.
yep.
So while this being one of the transformational experiences for sure, reflecting on the entire journey, is there anything like you wish maybe you had done differently?
That's a good question because it's definitely it's not a thought I've spent a lot of time on. But yeah, I would not say I would have done a lot differently. I think maybe in the initial days, it was a bit overwhelming for me to be exposed for such be exposed. It was like a cultural shock in some ways.
Mm,
So I think in the initial few days and weeks, I was a bit going into my shell because it's like, hey, all these different things, and you start feeling a bit conscious. But I think that kind of went away in like 2 3 weeks. So maybe like and the 2 3 weeks is not a long time, but if you're going for 4 months, 3 weeks can
mm,
be a long time, right?
mm.
So the idea was maybe I could have been a bit more receptive and not afraid, I guess. But I don't blame myself too much because it was my first time, right? And in some ways, like when I moved to the States, I did not have that starting point because I'd already gone through it before in Europe and I didn't feel so out of place here in the States.
I think then it's kind of a part of the journey itself. Like you need to go through each part, and that's a part of learning. There's always a first time. So I think that might not be a regret exactly, because yeah, as it did help at a later point, and then I mean, it might be different for everyone. So there
Right.
might have been people of your cohort who might have taken some less time, or maybe more than
Yeah,
yours too. But more or less, as long as it's what matters in the bigger picture, how your entire experience goes on.
exactly.
And I think then these become like very small things when you
Yeah,
look back upon.
yeah,
Okay, so I think we would just we're almost close to the end, and one
okay,
thing that what we would like to know is that we have the 60th batch, like the cohort for the 60th batch has been selected, and
okay.
they are preparing next year to go for their CEMS exchange, and they would really love to have a message from you, any advice or suggestions before they go ahead and start prepping.
So, I'm not someone who likes to give unsolicited feedback, so I would not, ever advise. So I would not probably say that, do this or do that. I think just have your own SEMS experience. Every SEMS experience is very unique, and it's what you do with it. SEMS will give you opportunities to get yourself exposed to things which you wouldn't have been exposed to in the past. So every person is different. So based on what they like or dislike, just make sure you're aware of all the opportunities that SEMS is offering, and put yourself out there. uh, don't go into a shell. Choose some of the things that interest you, and you would be surprised how great it feels on the other side. So just put yourself out there, as SMs offers you these opportunities.
Yeah, I think that's the key to having the unique experiences, having a guideline to do this, do that, would maybe take away that personal element too. So yeah, I think this kind of an advice, and then the overall experiences that we have discussed, so that would pretty much help all the students who would be going for this, and even for the upcoming batches who would be looking forward to it. Yeah, I think thanks a lot. This was really helpful, and that I mean, people would really be glad to know about all this experience. And thanks for taking out the time and sharing all these wonderful insights and experiences with us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting and accommodating the delay, and for this engaging conversation.
Thanks a lot.
Sure. Have a good day.